Welcome back to the Six Pack Dad Tribe podcast. I'm Kris. I'm the GM at the Tribe and also one of the Tribe coaches. And today I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is gaining muscle, specifically the secrets to gaining muscle after 40. I think all of us at this point have heard in the news and stuff like that or read online the importance of strength training and gaining muscle, especially as we age. But I think most of us, knowing the importance of it, walk into the gym and are just lost. We look at the weights, we don't know what to do, we don't know what technique is right, we don't know what machines to pick or what exercises to specifically do, and we end up on the treadmill just doing things that we're comfortable with. And so this presentation is all about helping you understand what it is that you should do, how to go about strength training for your goals if your goals are gaining muscle. So first and foremost, let's talk about why is muscle even important, especially as we age? Well, one thing to know about muscle is that muscle will peak around 30 to 35 years old. So in that age range, you will have the highest amount of muscle in your lifetime. After 35, every year and especially every decade thereafter, your muscle mass will be declining. And if you do not strength train from your 30s onward, there will be a pretty steep decline in muscle mass, a pretty big drop off. But if you strength train, it actually slows that decline out and you have this kind of slower ramping downward of your muscle mass. And so it's not that we can't prevent muscle loss over time. There's just natural age related muscle loss that is going to occur, but we can absolutely slow that decline down. And that is very, very influential on our health and on our longevity. The first reason why is that muscle improves our function. If the more muscle we have and the more muscle strength that we have, the better we'll be able to do the things that we want to do in our life. That's important right now because if you are in your 40s or 50s, you might have noticed that things are slowing down a little bit, especially if you're carrying a little bit too much excess body fat. Things are just harder. And if you haven't been strength training, you're probably already lost a little bit of muscle, have too much, you're carrying too much weight, and you might find it hard to just walk upstairs, play around with your kids, try to keep up with your kids, go on hikes, stuff like that. So muscle is very helpful for that function now, but especially function later on, because again, if you don't strength train, it only gets worse. And this is why you hear really tragic stories about people in their 60s, their 70s, their 80s falling and dying, not being able to get up because again, that's a lack of muscle. And so building muscle now sets you up for success later on in life and allows you to live better into your 60s, your 70s, and your 80s and improves your quality of life later on in age. So you might not be thinking about that point in your life right now, but again, you set yourself up for success in your 40s and 50s by strength training again, and that helps you have better function into your 60s, 70s, 80s. Muscle is also very important for metabolism. Every pound of muscle that you have burns around 8 to 12 calories extra per day. And so again, this works both ways. If you gain more muscle, you increase your daily metabolism. But if you lose muscle, you are reducing your metabolism. So this is why people's metabolism slowly decreases over time. But again, we can prevent that by strength training, or at least elongate it. Muscle is also very important for health and longevity. Longevity for the reasons that I listed earlier in terms of function, but also in terms of just health in general. So there's been some pretty cool studies. I'll name one to just give an example here, but a lot of studies have shown a big correlation between the amount of muscle you have and your health outcomes and how healthy you are in general. One of my favorite ones is this firefighter study. They looked at firefighters with an average age of 40 and they just asked them to do as many push-ups as they could in a minute. And those with the highest amount of push-ups had lower cardiovascular risk over time and had better outcomes. So they actually looked at these people, I think like 20 years or something like that, and just looked at, okay, how many push-ups did that person do versus did they have a heart attack? Did they have heart problems? And again, people who did more push-ups had less heart issues as they aged, showing that again, because push-ups and the amount of push-ups you do is a reflection of how much muscle you have and also how much muscle strength. So again, big correlation there between better muscle strength, better muscle mass, and better health outcomes. And they've done that for various diseases, not just heart disease and stuff like that. Lastly, muscle is very, very important for body composition. Most people have a twofold problem when it comes to their body composition. They're carrying too much body fat and too little muscle. Almost no one has too much muscle. That's pretty rare to see. And so when you're going about body composition change, and I think that's what a lot of people who follow this podcast are interested in, is how do I look better? How do I lose weight? Get it, accomplish my goals of becoming a fitter, healthier version of myself, looking better. It's going to be a combination of gaining muscle and losing body fat. So that's important to note here. Also, an important to note on this subject of body composition is that oftentimes we look at ourselves and we go, I need more muscle because we don't see our muscle. Oftentimes, to see our muscle, we just need to lose body fat first. So, losing body fat will uncover the muscle you already have. Now, let's say you go through a fat loss phase and you get pretty lean and you still don't look all that muscular. That's an indication that you're not carrying enough muscle mass. And so that's why in our program, we have a phase two. So, after phase one fat loss, we transition most people into phase two muscle growth and maintenance phase, helping you build muscle because that is, again, part of the twofold problem that most people have. Again, it's pretty rare unless you came into a fat loss phase with a good amount of muscle mass. Let's say you had an athletic background, that after a fat loss phase, you don't need to gain muscle. And in fact, again, for the reasons I just listed, everyone should continue trying to gain muscle and strength train just for health and longevity and function as you age. So the first thing that you want to do to gain muscle when you are in your 40s plus is master technique. Technique is the foundation of muscle growth and productive training. If you skip this step, you're going to likely injure yourself and you're not going to see the results you want to see. And the reason that is because when you use proper technique, you work the muscles the best. And when you don't use good technique, you do not work those muscles as good as you could. And as a result, you don't see as good of results as you could have seen otherwise. So technique is going to keep you safe. It's also going to help you target the muscles that you want to target in the best way possible and therefore get the best muscle growth. So again, this is the foundation. This is where when I work with people in person, this is where we start. You master technique first before we get into heavy weights or pushing it crazy. A lot of my clients, when they were working with me in person at the strength training facility I was working at, they would be like, I don't feel like I'm doing very much in these first couple of workouts. And I'm like, yep, we're setting you up for success later on. We're going to help you build great movement patterns. And that way your strength training is actually productive. Because again, if you don't have a good technique, you're not even working the right muscles in the best way. And again, you're going to see really poor results and likely injure yourself over time. The second thing you want to do if you want to gain muscle after 40 is do the right exercises. I think a lot of people, again, go into the gym, not really sure what they need to do. And so they just stick with what's comfortable. For a lot of guys, that's like curls and bench press. There's a lot more muscles in the body than that. And so you need to do the right exercises that works all the major muscle groups in the body. So major muscle groups in the body, I like to kind of section the body into like four quadrants. You have your upper body, the front side. You have your upper body, the back side. You have the same in your lower body. So you have the front side, lower body. You have the back side, lower body. And then you have your core. So there's kind of five main quadrants. You can hit those five quadrants the best through the following seven exercise movement patterns. So they're not necessarily exercise movement patterns are not necessarily exercises. They are things, it's like an umbrella term for certain exercises because different exercises can hit the same muscle group, but they often are similar in terms of they are the same movement pattern, if that makes sense. So hopefully this kind of walkthrough will help describe that better. So there's seven movement patterns that all humans can do. And this will help you hit all your major muscle groups in your body. So the first one is horizontal presses. So again, this is your umbrella term. This is your movement pattern. This is when you're just pressing perpendicular to your body. So this could be things like bench press, push-ups, dumbbell bench press. Again, there's a lot of different variations here. But again, notice that they all are pushing away from your body, perpendicular to your body. You can also do the second movement pattern here is horizontal pulls. So this is when you're pulling perpendicular to your body. So again, there's a lot of exercises that fit under this umbrella term. But again, if you want to gain muscle and want to work all the muscle groups in your body, you need to do some sort of horizontal pull. So it could be things like cable rows, dumbbell rows, and then single arm variations. Again, there's a lot of things, a lot of exercises under that movement pattern. Third is overhead presses. So unlike a horizontal press where you're pressing perpendicular to your body, overhead presses is when you're pressing overhead. And so there's a few exercises here that would be like barbell overhead presses or dumbbell overhead presses. You can do single arm variations. Um, but that is your third movement pattern. Fourth movement pattern is vertical pulls. So instead of pulling towards your body, you are pulling from up above your head and down. So this would be things like pull-ups or lat pull downs. Number five is, and this is now we're going into the lower body. So that was all your upper body movement patterns. Lower body movement patterns are the squat, which can also be like a lunge variation. So squats of any kind, dumbbell squats, barbell squats, lunges of any kind, which would be like single leg variations of a squat, walking lunges, reverse lunges. That works the front side of your legs, also a little bit of your back side, but mainly the quads. Hinges are what works the back side of your legs. This is things like deadlifts, RDLs, hip thrusts. And then you have your seventh movement pattern, core movements. So this could be really anything that works the core. I like planks and side planks, what we call isometric core exercises. That's where I start most of my clients. And then you can mix in more dynamic exercises over time, like sit-ups, Russian twists. There's a lot of ways that the core can move. So there's a lot of different exercises to hit the core. But again, if you do those seven movement patterns, you will hit every major muscle group in the body. So every program should be designed on those seven movement patterns, and it should include at all times at least one of those. Number three is if you want to build muscle, especially after the age of 40, you need to follow a program. What I see a lot of people don't do is they're not following a program, or they are switching it up too frequently. So again, going into the gym and just doing random stuff and getting it can give you a workout. You might see some results, but you're not going to see the best results just going in the gym and doing whatever. Again, you want it to be structured. You want it to be based on the seven movement patterns I just listed, and you want to stick to those same workouts, that program, for at least 2 months. Again, this is where I see a lot of people go wrong. Is maybe they do have a program, maybe they do have a routine, but they switch it up too often. The body takes time to adapt. Initially in a program, you'll see a lot of results, but a lot of that is not necessarily muscle gain. It's just neurological adaptations, your body just getting better at firing muscles in the way that you're asking it to. So you start doing bench press. Again, at first, you're not really good at bench press. You don't have the technique down, but as you master the technique, you'll start adding lots and lots of weight. But then eventually you'll plateau. Really where muscle growth is built is after you plateau in those that after that like first month of what we would call like newbie gains, these rapid gains that you see early on in a program. Again, it's not typically associated with muscle gain. It's typically just strength adaptations from your muscle and your brain working in better coordination to fire muscles and to move weight. After about that first month of easy gains, things slow down. And now you're fighting to add a rep every week or add just a tiny bit of weight. And a lot of people, they get to that point and they just switch the program. They're like, yeah, this program's not working anymore. And they go to something else. And they like that because they switch it up and they start seeing a lot of progress again. But again, that progress is just typically neurological adaptations, not muscle mass gain. And so if you stick with a program for at least 2 months or longer, you'll work through that initial newbie phase. You'll start to plateau out, and then you'll just if you keep grinding at it, keep working on adding a rep per week or a little bit of weight every couple weeks. That is where real muscle growth happens and is built. So stick to a program for at least 2 months, if not longer. Number four is you want to progressively overload. So within your program, you want to be slowly but surely increasing the intensity in some way. That's what progressive overload is, the progressive intentional increase of intensity over time. You can do this through adding more weight. You can do this through adding more reps, more sets, or reducing rest times. Those are all the four main ways you can increase intensity in a program. This does not mean that you just add more weight every session. That's where a lot of guys go wrong. They just think, all right, I know I need to improve. I know I need to get stronger. So I'm just going to, every session, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to bench press, I'm going to slap 10 pounds on. And not only does this end really quickly because you'll plateau faster than you should, but you also increase your injury risk because you're just adding more and more load to your muscles and your tendons, and they might not be ready for that. And that's how you get an injury. So what I recommend is following a progression scheme where you add reps first and then add weight. So for what I do with a lot of my clients is for most exercises, I give them a specified rep range, let's say 8 through 12. And so what they do week one of the program is find a challenging weight for a set of 8. And let's say it's bench press, they find that 95 pounds is hard for a set of 8. Every week thereafter, they try to work up that rep range with 95 pounds. So they start at eight, 3 sets of 8. They slowly work their way up to 3 sets of 12. This might take a month or so. But once they hit the top end of that rep range, that is their cue. So they hit 3 sets of 12 with 95. That's their cue to add weight. And so with an upper body exercise, you're typically adding anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds. So let's say they increase to 105. That brings them back down to 3 sets of 8, and then they repeat the process. That's how you slowly, progressively overload an exercise to gain muscle over time. Because that's really the only way you can gain muscle is progressive overload. Because the body quickly adapts to any stimulus you provide it. So if you start benching with 95 pounds, your body is going, and especially if that's difficult, your body's going to build a little bit more muscle, get a little bit more stronger through some neurological adaptations, maybe a little bit of muscle growth. And then after that workout, it has adapted. And if you don't change the weight, it'll have no reason to add more muscle. So that's why you have to continually add a little bit more over time to continue pushing the body to grow more muscle. Because again, body's very stubborn. If it doesn't have to add more muscle, it won't. You have to give it reasons to do that. The last thing to focus on when trying to gain muscle over 40 is recovery. This is something I stress so heavily with all my guys because you're not 20 anymore. It's you can't party every weekend, barely, eat the right foods, not drink not drink water and still and not sleep and still make progress at the end of the day. At 40 years old, if you still have those kind of habits, it's going to really, really hinder your ability to grow muscle and reap the benefits from a program. One of my favorite sayings is that the best program is the one that you can recover from. You could literally have the best strength and conditioning coach, dude works for the Lakers, write you the best program on earth, but if you aren't doing the right things to recover after you do those workouts, it won't do anything for you. So you have to focus on recovery, especially at 40 plus, because again, you just can't get away with things that you got away with when you were 20. What does recovery mean? Well, there's really four main things that recovery surrounds. And that number one is quality nutrition, specifically your protein intake. You have to be eating well. You need to be eating nutritious foods, and you need to be eating enough protein because protein is really what's going to drive muscle growth over time. Your body, it's really the raw materials your body needs to build up more muscle. If the protein's not coming in, it's going to be really hard to gain muscle over time. Number two is sleep. And sleeping at least 7+ hours per night. That is ideal sleep for not only muscle growth, but just health. Why sleep? Sleep is where you actually build muscle. You get into that deep restful state. That's where your body does all the hard work in terms of adding new muscle tissue. If you're not sleeping, you're literally just not giving your body the time and space it needs to build that muscle. Number three is proper hydration. A big percentage of your muscles is water. And so you need water for just general health, but also muscle function. And then lastly, stress management. If you are chronically stressed, it's going to affect your nutrition choices. It's going to affect your sleep. It's probably going to affect your hydration status. And so you need to have ways to manage stress so that your body is in a better condition to sleep better, to eat better, to recover, to build muscle at the end of the day. So those are the 5 things that hopefully have helped simplify strength training for you a little bit. Again, strength training, especially as you age, is difficult. It's challenging. It's pretty complex. But these are the basics. These are the basics that you want to focus on if your goal is to build muscle. And if you need help with this, again, not only do we specialize in fat loss for busy professional dads at the Six Pack Dad Tribe, we also have a phase 2 program where we help people gain muscle and maintain the results from phase 1. Phase 1 is a prerequisite to get into phase 2, unless again you're coming in already lean. The reason being, because again, if you want to see results, you need to lose body fat first to kind of uncover the muscle that you already do have, and then we build on top of that. If you go into phase 2 and you are, let's say, 25% plus body fat, you're not going to really see a lot of results. And maybe your goal isn't to look better, and then in that case, that we could definitely have a discussion as to what we could do for you. But for a lot of people, not only do they want to gain muscle and reap the benefits in terms of longevity and function and all of that, but they also want to improve their body composition. So again, the best way to go about that is go about a fat loss phase first, lose the body fat, get to a lean body fat percentage, which for most people is around 15%. That's where you start to see some good muscle definition. Then from there, transition into phase 2 so that you can actually see your muscles as you build them and you are in a healthy position And again, that way you are seeing the seeing the results of your hard work on the strength training side of things again, because it's going to be hard to see any muscle growth if you are 25% body fat. Because again, there's just too much body fat in the way covering up those muscles. So that's what we recommend. That's what a lot of our guys that join the 6 month program are doing is they for the first, let's say 3 or 4 months, they are in phase one. They get to a lean body fat percentage, and then we switch them into phase two, help them build muscle, which continues to lower their body fat percentage because as you gain muscle, now body fat makes up a smaller percentage of your total body weight, and they continue to improve their body composition over time while eating more. Because that's the other thing I didn't talk about today is that when you are in a strength training phase, you can eat a lot more food and it not go towards body fat because again, it's going towards building muscle. So if you would like to help with that, reach out. We'd love to have a discussion and see if we'd be a good fit.